This is barley. Well, there's different types of barley. This is 2-row barley. It could also be 6-row, which will look much more similar to wheat. So if we want to ask ourselves, how can we tell the difference? Especially in modern grains. These are called awns. Then you have the kernels here. You can have wheat or barley today that doesn't have any awns whatsoever. So just looking at them in a basic way is not enough to tell. But if we just take 1 grain barley and grain of wheat. Oops, I already. Okay, I guess I have to do it with the. You have to look close here. Here's the barley. You have the kernel in the middle, and you have these little ears on the outside. Okay, with the wheat, there's just 1 awn. You see that? 1 awn. Try to look at wheat. Each kernel actually, it's not just encased in 1 little casing. There's, see, more pieces. So this is the way I can tell the 2 apart for sure. Okay, there's 1 awn coming up here, but there's more pieces of the casing that are split off on the sides. Okay. So this is, I can tell for sure that this is wheat and this is barley, even if they look similar. Like I said, 6-row barley will actually look quite similar to this. This is 2-row, which means you can see basically a row of awns here on one side and a row of awns there on the other side. And here you have, because there's more rows. Does everybody understand? Okay.
So can we see the wheat? You said that there's like 4. What do you call that? 4 awns.
These are awns.
Yeah, but what about the
These are. This has 2 rows.
yeah.
There's 1 row on this side and
Yeah,
1
I
row
know.
on this side.
But prior to what you said that how you can distinguish between a wheat and a barley is true by looking.
Okay, let's see. Here's a barley. See here? There's just 1 case over the kernel.
Right.
And 1 awn. Okay? Now look at the wheat. You see how it splits the case? See that?
Right. It's like it's peeling.
Yeah. Okay? Now, hold on. Now, how does this play? There's like a story in the Gospels about Jesus being out in the field with his disciples on the Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
And they're picking grains, and then what are they accused of? Breaking the Sabbath, right? So this is a question of what do you see as work? Now, the amount of, so there's, wheat is the preferred grain. One, it's usually has larger kernels. Most people think it tastes better, and it's a lot easier to work. Okay, so if I take barley and I want to, just keep in mind that the kernel is still in there. I have to get this whole case off before I get the kernel that I want to either roast or to grind. Okay, so how much work do you think that is when you have millions of these?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the steps of working on grain? If I'm harvesting, I reap. Then what do I have to do?
So
No.
No.
After in the harvest, first I have to sow, and then it's watered.
Yeah.
But then eventually it gets ripe, and I
you reap it.
Then what do I have to do?
Then
Thresh it?
Thresh it. What's threshing? It's breaking the stalks off.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. and then eventually I have to sift it and I have to do other things. Okay, now watch. Watch what happens. Okay, hopefully this will work right.
Wow. Wow.
There's the kernels ready.
Wow.
Okay, I can take these kernels and I'm ready to do something with them, like eat them on the Sabbath day.
Oh.
But in rabbinic thinking, or in the Pharisaic thinking, I threshed, I did all those steps that they consider as work. Now, hold this. Ready?
Oh.
I still have to do all the work.
Yeah.
Okay? So, it's a lot easier work. There's not even there's no comparison between the amount of work it takes to get the barley ready to grind and wheat.
And not to mention that but then barley takes less rainfall. I mean rainwater.
Yeah, there's a lot of other issues as well. Barley is a much more secure crop. It's much less finicky than wheat. It takes less rain, it can be intermediate, it can grow in soils that wheat won't grow in. Okay? But in any case, the story in the Gospels is exactly about that. If I'm going through the field and I want to eat, I'm not going to eat all the awns and everything. They stick. They're very sticky. This is the awns stick to clothes so that it spreads the seed. It sticks to animals, it sticks to your clothes. Maybe when you were out in the field earlier, it was in your
Yeah,
shoes
it
and
was in my
everywhere
shoes.
else.
Yeah.
That's the job. It also will dig itself a hole in the ground, actually. It's part of planting itself. Okay? But still, when we go back to the story of Jesus with his disciples in this field on the Sabbath, they did that to get the seed that they could eat. Which means, in Pharisaic way of interpreting the Torah,
It's work.
it's work.
It's work.
Okay?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So this wheat tastes like it's edible, but then I thought that wheat harvest is usually in May, later during Shavuot.
Okay.
So how come it's like it's ready to eat?
Okay. So, this is a good question. First of all, we talked about the process of domestication, right? What did we say? What's the critical point of domestication for grain, which is a grass? What makes it domestic? You crossbreed it
Irrigation.
so that it doesn't fall apart when it dries out. Okay, this is the critical point of domestication for all grains. Okay, so this is actually wild barley, and we find it everywhere in Israel. We're gonna see it all over on our field trip. And this is related to barley that was from ancient times. Some of this has escaped from fields and everything, but when you crossbreed things, if you don't continue to crossbreed them, they return to their natural state within 3 generations. So all of this barley is related to ancient barley. Okay, but it has returned to the state before domestication. But so I can say without doubt, more or less, what would have been happening in fields in Israel in ancient times just by looking at it all over the country.
It's the same.
But I don't have wild wheat growing everywhere all over in the country. This is all modified, not only by crossbreeding, but genetically and everything else. You can make barleys and wheats to grow in all different types of climates, and that they'll ripen in different periods. Today, there's like an immense variation, and this has all been manipulated by man. So, in a good climate, I might not just have one crop per year. I plant one type of wheat and it grows early, and then I plant another one and it'll ripen later in the season today. So we have all of these factors that we can't just take this wheat and project it back
Yeah.
1,000 years
Yeah.
and say this is how it would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one part of it, and then so it does generally ripen later, but that doesn't mean that they're not ripening at the same time. There are still similar things. Okay, it depends all on the conditions outside, on how well they'll ripen, when they'll ripen, which aspect it's planted on. A certain, if I have grain planted on a certain side of the hill, it'll ripen faster than if I have it someplace else, even a little ways away.
Wow.
Okay, if I'm looking at for the Aviv early in the season, the stuff planted up on the side of the hill will always ripen faster
First.
before someplace that's more shady and flat. So the ancient farmer, he knew exactly where to plant everything in his property. He just didn't, it wasn't all the same crop everywhere. He knew where to put what and when it would get ripe. Okay? Okay.